It's the best thing in sports betting.
Welcome to the Bear Bets Podcast. I am Geoff Schwartz. Chris the Bear Felica is off this week. We'll be back next week. We still have a great show for you guys. We're going to preview all the conference championships this week, all the major conferences. We'll throw in a few other ones as well. Maybe at the very end of the show, we'll get some baseball features. I know we've been throwing those around in the gambling group chat. But to help me today, we have Sammy P. We have Will Hill, an entire show of the gambling group chat. Welcome in, guys. Before we get started here, I want to go back to last week because we talked about Missouri Valley Conference unders. And we're talking about in the gambling group chat. We talked about on the show. And our friend here, Will Hill, said after the first game went over by 19 points that Sammy, that it's dead. The trend is dead. The next 10 games went under. Is the trend dead, guys?
No.
Now it's dead.
The best part about the Missouri Valley unders is for 3 straight days, people go out of their way to tell you that, oh, it's too low, I can't do it. And then they smart themselves or outsmart themselves and start betting over the low numbers. Every game after the first game went under. So thank you for reviving the trend that was dead for one game.
All right, new topic. We're going to go to the SEC here. We got Auburn, Florida, a lot of good teams in this. Yeah, no, look, it's and Sammy, you can relate to this because you were all over this hat tip 100%. I actually found a way to lose money on this trend because I was betting first half unders, and a lot of the first halves went over. The first one went over. A lot of the first halves, even though the games went under, the first halves went over, which is just crazy. I was just worried about fouling overtime. But back to what I was going to say. The number usually should matter. And if you didn't get these right away, some of these were moving 8-10 points. And you know this, Sammy, usually when there's an 8-10 point live move, I'm not going to still bet the worst number. If you bet the worst number, you were doing fine. So it was one of those weird things where you didn't need to know much except the trend. If you just followed the trend and didn't worry about the number, which is not something we usually recommend, you did fine. So yeah, I was worried that this was going to be baked in. And eventually all edges die, but this one lives for not just lives, 10 in a row. My goodness, just an incredible stretch here.
It's been like 15 years that I've made money on these unders. It's the best thing in sports betting, the Missouri Valley unders. I just hope next year that people are betting these the night before. And we had talked about it. We're all in this group thread, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. I'm like, bet them when they open. And the one game, Geoff, you brought up in the text on Friday, it opened at 163 and got down to 151. And I had a text from one of my buddies back home. Do we like it at under 151? I'm like, no, I don't. But it still won. I mean, the way that it didn't matter, the numbers didn't matter, that's unheard of. Like, that's a ridiculous move to still hit with all the numbers going under.
And the problem with this too, it's not like the regular season where the games for Thursday come up late Wednesday night. There's some rhyme reason to it. You got to really be on your phone and keep your eye on when these lines pop up, because one game will end and then the matchup is set and then another game. They're kind of sporadic. They're kind of spread out. Not all books have them all the time. So you got to really be shopping. You got to really be diligent about, okay, when is this line going to pop up? That's part of it too, Sammy, where it's not as easy to catch the best line because there's not as much rhythm to when these lines come out being in a postseason format.
That number, by the way, is settled 139 that opened 163. 139 points that game, so it flew under even with the closing number of 151. All right, guys, let's get to the ACC tournament. It is starting today as we're recording this on Tuesday. We will not talk about each individual game. We'll talk about the teams we like, and we'll give you a dark horse if we have one. Not every conference will have a dark horse. Will, let's start with you in the ACC. Obviously, Duke heavy favorite here. Minus 320, minus 300, somewhere around there. Is anyone beating Duke in this tournament?
I don't know, Sammy. Maybe we can use some of those apps that let you pick their own number. We can get like Duke at plus money. I know those apps come in handy. I think the team I like just in general, and I think most bang for the buck, Clemson. This was a team that was in the Elite Eight last year. I think they're better last year. And if it wasn't for a ridiculously hot shooting night for three from Bama last year, Clemson might have been in the Final Four. They protect the rim. They shoot. They've beaten Duke already. To me, some books have them at 7-1. Louisville's shorter. I'm not sure I understand that. I think this Clemson team is really, really good. Now, Well, can they actually win it all? I think when you're talking big picture, teams that can win it all, that list is very short. It might be 4 deep, 5 deep, something like that. The teams that can make a Final Four, it's longer. There's a difference between winning 4 games and winning 6 games in this tournament, Sammy. But to me, Clemson at 7-1 is the best bang for your buck. And if you want to look at trends, speaking of Missouri Valley, if you want to look at trends, I think 2018 was the last time the 1 seed in the ACC won this tournament. It hasn't been chalk filled. The top teams either don't care or get upset or whatever. So to me, I like Clemson here at that number.
NC State wins the ACC tournament last year at a huge price.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think anybody's going to touch Duke. And that's not me saying go run to the window, log into your app, and fire them at -$3 or higher, -325. I think it's an unbettable conference. I will agree with Will, though. In my pendings right now, I almost hit submit on Clemson at 7-1. My big fear, though, is that they get to the deep part of the tournament and then just they don't have enough on offense to beat Duke. Clemson's very good, and I will look to put Louisville and Clemson deeper into the big tournament, but this is Duke's ACC. I'm sorry. People don't want to hear that. That's the way it is.
Look, Louisville and Clemson will most likely meet each other in the 2-3 matchup. Winner of that game will get Duke. So, getting one of those right now at plus money and then maybe having that to play off of in that game is a way to play this one. And I think Clemson's slightly better than Louisville. If you look at their metrics, they're about the same, but Clemson just turns the ball over a little bit less, shoots it just a tad more, Will. So it would make sense if you think they're going to play 2-3, right? Just take one of those 2 teams to win and then just hope and pray happens against Duke. And you see what happens. I mean, do you guys subscribe to the theory that it's not great to win your conference tournament? I'm not sure the teams really care, but we've heard coaches talk about this where like they'd rather almost lose a game if you're like Duke in the conference tournament to then motivate your team to play better when it comes to big dance.
To me, this is similar to in the NFL. Do you want your quarterback as a rookie to sit as a rookie or play right away? I think we just kind of run with the narrative and play the results. I don't know that data proves it one way or another. You look at a bunch of national championships that did win their conference tournament. You look at a bunch that didn't. Same thing with the NFL, quarterbacks that are successful. I'll show you a bunch that were good that sat. I'll show you a bunch that were good that played right away, and vice versa. There's a bunch of flops that sat. There's a bunch of flops that played right away. I think we kind of play the results with this, Sammy. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it. Personally,
there's still a bet floating around because this price will only get more expensive, assuming Duke goes to the title game and probably wins the title game. There's still that price on Duke to make the Final Four. And I know that people want long shots. They want to bet a little to win a lot. Why don't you just bet on the best team to probably get to the Final Four? I mean, you think about their path, and we did discuss this last week, but it's worth bringing up again. If Duke wins this tournament, and again, they're a $3 favorite, they go from -150 to -170 to win the region. And they're going to be favored by 30 in game 1, 17 in game 2, and then they're going to be double-digit favorites probably in that 3rd and 4th game. Maybe it's 8, 8.5 in the Elite 8. Duke is going to the Final Four. And
wow. You think 17 over an 8 seed? If they're in the 1-8, you think 17?
Depending on the 8 seed, it could 14. I mean, they're going to be a 2-touchdown favorite.
What if it's UConn? What's a Duke UConn line look like?
Oh, geez. Duke UConn's probably 9.5, 10.
Yeah.
I mean, without like crunching it. I mean, I'm just doing this in real time.
Yeah.
It's not 6 and it's not 8. I mean, it's probably 9, 9.5, 10. Yeah. So they're gonna walk into the second weekend and then they're gonna be favorite again. And at that point, they're -300 or 400 to win the region. So I still think, if you don't want to bet Duke to win the ACC tournament, you can still bet them -150 to make the Final Four.
Yeah, Will, you mentioned it. Bracketology has that 8-9 game in the East region, UConn, Georgia. So that would put UConn and Duke facing each other if this is accurate. In that,
TV would love that, by the way. The ratings, they would love a Duke UConn on like a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon. Man, that would be I think Duke would beat them. Yeah,
put UConn through over Georgia if that happens.
Yes.
So no dark horses for you guys at all in this conference. Like no NC States. Obviously, it's hard to wager on today. Just throw it out there. But there's no SMU 65-1. They're not running through this thing, are they?
No, they've just beaten up on cupcakes. I think they're awful when they step up in competition. I mean, look, you're not going to get an NC State every year. That's just an incredible story. And then to just parlay that with a trip to the Final Four. And by the way, less than a year later, the coach is out of a job, which is just an insane twist to it. But no, I think Clemson 7-1 is as far as you can go.
All right, let's move to the Big 12 here. Houston, big favorite in this one. Not big, minus 120, but the next team, Texas Tech, is plus 425. Then Arizona plus 850. Then BYU out to 11-1. Sammy, we'll start with you here. Anyone besides Houston willing to put your money on?
I don't think it's out of the question that Kansas makes a run, but do they win the Big 12 tournament? That's the bugaboo, right? That's what we're talking about. Can they actually cut down the nets at the end? And I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas made it to the final and then lost to whoever. Any of these teams at the top, but the talent is there. We know the coach is there. And the one thing about Bill Self, he's one of those very few coaches that are exceptional at making those short turnaround adjustments. And that checks a lot of boxes for me. They have NBA talent. They're deep. They have a good coach. And the pedigree is there. They played an unbelievably tough schedule this year. So Kansas has a lot of what you need. And let's think about what the price would have been before the season. Kansas would have been like 5 or 6 to 1 to win this tournament. But because nobody wants to bet Kansas, that price goes way up.
Yeah, and to your point too, they get that tournament at home. Basically, they're going to have a massive home court advantage. I like Texas Tech plus 425. I'm looking at who can beat Houston. Texas Tech won in Houston without one of their best players who got ejected early in that game. Is an ejection or a foul? I can't remember. And then they played a couple of weeks ago, and Texas Tech was down 2 starters, and that game came down to the wire. So I think Texas Tech again at plus 425. I'm seeing at DraftKings. To me, that's a good number. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they won this tournament.
Can I give you guys Arizona? Are you going to laugh at me? Are we going to back Tommy Lloyd here? He won the Pac-12 2 years in a row in the tournament. Now, that doesn't matter for March Madness when we fade Arizona, but he's proven that he can get his team ready to play in this tournament. It's different than most, right? You play 4 days in a row, 3 days in a row. Arizona's not on Houston's side looking at the bracket, so they won't have to play them until the very end. They will get Texas Tech. They might get Kansas. If Kansas ends up beating, I would imagine they beat Utah or UCF. Can I sell you one on Arizona here? Plus 850 is a team that has proven can win the conference tournament.
I don't mind Arizona. The team. I would need a little more. I don't mind the team, but I would need a little more.
No, everyone's out on Tommy Lloyd. Are we waiting to fade him in the tournament?
Love is just so up and down too.
I know. That type of point guard can win any long shots, guys. I guess Kansas would be the long shot, right? 13-1 for you guys.
Yeah, that's about as long as it gets for teams that I'm willing to bet. Look, the reality is you're going to see a lot of teams in these markets pull up whatever conference you want, and you're going to see 50-1, 40-1, 25-1. The reality is, those teams don't win the tournament. They can win a couple games, but in terms of stringing together wins on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's just mathematically improbable that it happens. So I sort of draw the line usually at 10 or less, but I love this. Will I give Geoff a 13-1? And he's like, how about a long shot? I'm like, what do you want?
I'm making a good cut for social media. We need to be able to hear Sammy say, I have Kansas as my long shot. So when we put that out on social media, everyone can know to mock you if they lose their first game of the Big 12 tournament.
Shedeur Sanders is a bust.
There you go. Well, Colorado, by the way, tipping off in a few minutes against these. Are y'all wagering in these early conference championship games, like unders in these early games, or you just stay away from all of them?
Yeah, I like some of the unders in the early games. I just think anyone that's been in those buildings, it's half empty arenas, not a lot of energy, early tip times, some groggy starts. So I do think those early first half unders are good plays. I don't like the full game unders because in these conference tournaments, they will foul to the bitter end, which makes that Missouri Valley under trend so incredible. Some of those teams, I think it was in the Drake game, somebody was fouling down 14 with 2 minutes to go and they still survived it. So keep that in mind with these full game unders, the fouling. But yeah, these first half unders, especially these early start times, half empty buildings, I think are good plays here, Sammy.
And most importantly, with these early games in the first round or two, these teams are bad. So yes. you don't have really good shot making. You don't have NBA talent. So, a game like Notre Dame and Pittsburgh is going to suck aesthetically. And we've already seen that game. I know that game will be long over by the time this show airs, but it opened 138 and now it's 135.5. And a lot of these theme chasers in these tournaments, they make it out okay. They make it out ahead because that initial move is very strong and it's indicative of a game that should have been, a lot lower on the open. So, I don't love betting under when the lines have moved 10 or 12 points like they did in the Valley, but some of these 2-point moves in these conference tournaments are still true.
Just for reference, this is a Big Cats play of the day over Pittsburgh Notre Dame. After the 16-0 streak is over, he give out 5 plays today, 4 overs in TCU. So I mean, the magic could be over, guys. 16 wins in a row, pretty wild. All right, let's get to the SEC now. What we think is the best conference in the country. I'll start with you, Will. Who are you riding with to win this conference? Obviously, many options here. It feels like a lot of the teams have an opportunity to win this one. Auburn struggling recently. Are you going to back them or someone else?
There's a few teams that catch my eye. Ole Miss is a pretty damn good team. For them to be 65-1 to win this tournament is interesting. They would, I think, get the winner of Arkansas, South Carolina. A&M, if they could ever string together a couple of good 3-point shooting games, they're painful to watch. But they beat Auburn a week ago. They win the possession games where they get rebounds. They get offensive rebounds. They create turnovers. They don't turn it over themselves. It's just they can't shoot. If they can ever, string together 2-3 days, Sammy, where they can shoot 38% from 3, maybe they're worth a shot at 25-1. Ultimately, it's probably a Florida and Auburn. I mean, there's just so many good teams. Arkansas is 250-1 at one book. To Sammy's point, are they winning the tournament? No. Could you see them making a run and getting to like a quarter or semifinal and maybe you can hedge? That's not like the worst bet I've ever heard. But I don't know, Sammy, do you have anything here? I guess I'd probably, if you just said, hey, here's $100 free bet to put on one team, which is usually a decent exercise. Like, what is your best bet? What is the best bang for the buck? I guess I'd probably take a shot with A&M at 25-1.
Ooh, I mean, do I want to win or do I want to have fun? If I want to have fun, I could get behind Buzz, no doubt. Can we throw the odds up again for one more second? Let's just explain the context of these prices. Duke in the ACC is minus 300 to win the ACC tournament. Auburn, one of the best teams in the country, is plus 150. So that speaks to the mathematical gap between the top of the ACC and the middle of the pack. And then the much deeper conference right here on the screen, SEC, where Auburn's 3-2, Florida shy of 3-1, and Bama's 4.25. Like, you don't have that in the ACC because Duke is that dominant. I know that Alabama gets a lot of flack for their defensive inefficiencies at times, but this was a team that was out of the top 100 last year in defensive efficiency, and they go all the way to the Final Four. So you need to score, and you need what I call a March guard or two. And Mark Sears is the definition of a March guard. And that's a team that could find rhythm. I actually think the way the conference tournaments are built, where you play every day, I think the rhythm that comes from that suits Alabama better than the Friday, Sunday, or the Thursday, Saturday week off time to prepare. I think Alabama is a nightmare to figure out on a short turnaround. So if you gave me 100, I'd go a little bit higher up the board. It's kind of a cop-out, but I'd take the Tide at 4.25.
Well,
what about a long shot, Sammy? Do you have a long shot?
I like Buzz. Yeah, I'm not gonna hate Buzz. Yeah. Do you have a long shot, Will? I mean, 25-1's nice, but I think we need a little bit longer. Yeah. How about a team at like 100-1? Do you like a team at 100-1? No, I like Bama. And if you want to get a part of Will's ticket on Buzz, I'm a big Buzz guy, but they're just so inconsistent and they have to win a lot in a row. And I don't know.
I actually think they're consistent. They can never shoot. That's their consistency. That's
what I'm saying. Like the scoring kind of
putting the ball through the hoop can be an issue. I admit.
Yeah.
Can I sell you guys on Missouri? Second in the country since February, offensive efficiency. Obviously, defensively inconsistent there, but would have to go through Florida and Alabama to get there, to get to Auburn, most likely, or Tennessee or someone on that side of the bracket. But nothing on Missouri.
No, and it's something to keep in mind with these tournaments too. Look at the home road splits. You need to show me something away from home because, barring a few exceptions, you're not playing these games with a home court advantage. You're not playing these games in your home arena. So what can you do away from home? I don't like Missouri in terms of winning this tournament, Sammy.
I agree.
Something we've talked about that is worth bringing up. I think we do this almost every week. Over under 1.5 SEC teams in the Final Four.
Ooh, it's a good number.
Well, I mean, Bear mentions this every week for last month. I'm curious if your mind has changed at all on Final Four teams. I mean,
I don't know that he has. We did one last week. We hadn't done one since the Super Bowl. So I will throw my challenge. I think I have a challenge left. I'm going to throw my challenge flag on him mentioning every day for last month. I'll go over.
Do we have a price either? Do we have
no? We're just setting
price?
it. I'm just saying over under at 1.5 SEC teams. What would you do? You think 2 are making it?
I mean, 1 is going to make it, but you need 2, obviously. I mean, I'd lean under just because there's always chaos. And I'm very cautious every year of the conference that everybody just salivates over and foams at the mouth for. It's not that easy. I mean, we've all filled out brackets for 20, 30 years now. Is it ever the way it appears in early March? No, it's not. And then you get a Cinderella, or you get an upset or whatever. So I would be inclined to go under. And I'm guessing if we do see this market, once the bracket comes out, we're looking at under 1.5 minus 270 or minus 300. That would be my guess.
All right, let's move to the Big Ten Conference. I cannot wait to fade this entire conference come the actual tournament. But I can't, as someone who's watching the conference this year, I just can't stand it. It's just, I see where they lose every tournament game all the time for the most part. Obviously, Purdue has made some runs, but it is what it is. Sammy, we'll start with you here. Thoughts on the Big Ten tournament?
So I like Wisconsin a lot, and I also love that they come in just a little undervalued because of how they've played in the last 7 or 8 days, give or take. Free throw, awesome free throw team, 83%. Like, okay, yeah, I like that team. But to your point, Michigan State being overvalued, I never like. I don't like them as a 1 or a 2 seed. I like them as a 5 or a 7. Like, I love Michigan State when nobody loves Michigan State. And I would draw the line at Maryland and bet one of those 4 teams. So I like Wisconsin. I went to Illinois, so I'm a little bit of a homer there. That team, as we know, is dangerous when making 3-point shots, but I don't know that Illinois is consistent enough to win all these days in a row. So I look at what the Badgers have done offensively and defensively. They play actually with a little bit of pace, unlike they have in years past. Bo Ryan teams never ran. This team can get out in transition, and Klesmit being healthy is a big deal. If he's healthy, they can win the Big Ten tournament. So I like Wisconsin. You can find a 7-1 will on the Badgers.
I like Maryland's team. I don't like the number at plus 350. Michigan State plus 250 is just too short. Something to keep an eye on with Michigan State too. Really good team, really well coached. Their 3-point splits, I mean, nobody's making threes against them. Some of it, okay, they're tough, physical, aggressive defense, but some of that is a little varied. So keep an eye on that. You hit on the team, Illinois plus 750. That's another team, 3-point variance where it has just gone against them all year. Everyone's making their threes. They're not making any of theirs. They take a ton of them. If they could just shoot a respectable number, they're getting healthier. They had, injuries, illnesses. We talked about them last week. They have a lottery pick. Them in a final at the minimum, look, you're talking about plus 750. You get them in a final. You can figure out what to do with that ticket and make some money, let it ride, whatever you want to do. I don't think that's a bad bet. And Jeff, you want long shots? I'll give you a long shot. Rutgers has 2 top 5 lottery type picks at 200-1. They need to win to get in. Now it's going to be 5 wins in 5 days. They're not very good defensively, and that is putting it kindly. But they start with USC, who they just beat a couple weeks ago. They would get Purdue and then Michigan after that. Purdue just buried them, but Purdue has their issues defensively. And Michigan,
terrible.
Michigan needed a 3-pointer at the buzzer to win at home against Rutgers not that long ago. So is there a path where, all right, let's just refresh here. We had a bad year, a very disappointing season, but let's let our talent take over, win a couple games, and you look up and they're still playing Friday, and you got a really long shot ticket that's in play. And then, these cash outs are an option, although you don't get the best bang for your buck. Just play against your ticket, kind of heads. I don't think they're going to win 5 in 5 days, but if there's ever a team, that talent and that number is intriguing to me.
Yeah, I love that we have looked at teams that don't have the double bye. I love that because there's going to be a lot of talk about, you get the double bye, you don't have to play all these games. But what happens when a Wisconsin wins that first game, beats UCLA, and then, they're hot and they're rolling? Like, I think the double bye, it could be great for a lot of reasons, but it's not great for other reasons. And look, that Illinois path is not difficult. they can beat Maryland. Unquestionably, Illinois could beat Maryland. And then you get either Purdue or Michigan or Rutgers, wink, wink. So this is a tournament where I have looked for longer shots in that like 3 to 6 range in terms of like, all right, let's skip over the top 2 prices and then go 3, 4, 5, or 6 and pick your poison. Will seems to like Illinois. I like Wisconsin. And we finally got Geoff a long shot on Rutgers. Yes.
Thank you. To your point about teams off of buying the Big Ten tournament, Sammy, they're only 26% against the spread since 2018. So they don't play well in those games. Those games are closer. Can I sell anyone in Oregon 28-1? They got to beat Indiana, and then they play Michigan State, who they were up 15 at halftime in East Lansing. We know Dana Altman always has his team ready. They've won 7 in a row. They would have to probably go through Wisconsin again, who they had a major comeback against about a month ago. Any buyers on Oregon is a long shot to win the Big Ten here?
Not betting it, but I couldn't argue if you did.
Just do it. You want to.
Oh, I bet on them like 3 months ago. I still have that ticket. It's about the same, so I don't have to change. I don't have to change. I don't have to add anything here.
Odds are not subject to change in this case.
No, they're actually basically the same. I thought I was going to get some value too. It's very unfortunate because Oregon lost 7 games in a row or 6 games in a row there at one point. So okay, very quickly at the bottom of the bracket, it's Maryland, Illinois, Rutgers on that side. You guys are both taking Illinois at the price to come out of the basically south of the bracket to play Wisconsin, Michigan State somewhere at the top. Is that what we're going with here?
Yeah, that sounds fair. What if Wisconsin beats Illinois, Geoff? Who are you rooting for, me or Will?
Oh man, that's a good question. I have to. Who's more money on it? Do you think who's going to put more money in Illinois?
Not
Wisconsin.
Me.
No, I'm not going to have that much on it.
I like Wisconsin, but again, just relatively speaking, like I'm betting 25% of a unit on these futures.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like it's not a full unit bet. It's a much smaller bet. So if you're $1,000 better, this is a 25% bet. So it's a $250 bet on a team at 7-1. And guess what? It probably doesn't win. I make a lot of these bets in conference tournaments, Will, where I get a good number, they win a couple games, but a lot of them they fizzle out in the semis or in the final. And that's the reality of making a future bet on a conference tournament. You're probably not going to win if you don't take the favorite, but we're enticed by the price and enticed by the number. And, I think Wisconsin is ripe to make a run in this tournament.
That's why if I ever do get a long shot in the final, people always talk about hedge, don't hedge. Well, why would you hedge? It's not life-changing money. Yeah, but if you make a bunch of these, you want to be able to fund your next 3, 4, 5 of these where you want to get some of that money back because there's going to be a bunch of these you don't have the opportunity to hedge where, if you got an 8-1 in the final, like Furman Wofford was an example for me, and kind of contradict myself because I didn't hedge, but if I could have hedged, I did hedge a little live. If you can hedge that, you can sort of pay for all of the mistakes, pay for the, the other ones. I know Queens, we talked about last week. That was one you were able to hedge, I think, Geoff, where
I did,
you want to get some of it back. You don't want to just bet 5, 6, 7 of these and get nothing back. Yeah.
I have to figure out if I'm hedging my Delaware ticket tonight or not against Wilmington. We'll find out. I mean, who bet on Delaware? Who didn't go to Delaware? They're in the championship tonight. Is a 12 seed? Is that what the works? They won 5 conference games, I think.
What was that number before the tournament? I haven't seen
it either. All right, guys. Big East time. St. John's is the favorite, plus 155. Then Creighton, then UConn. Then it's sort of a break in the line. Xavier, Marquette. Big East tournament. Who you guys got? Will, I'll start with you here.
Yeah, this is one where I don't have a ton of conviction where I'm going to just pound the table for one team. I understood UConn opened 5-6-1 in some spots. I get that. There's a little mini home court advantage with that. They've played better recently. Hurley, Sammy, your point about like the quick turnaround, the adjustments, that kind of thing. They've got talent. Where could you get them to a final at 6-1? Yes, but in most spots I'm seeing, I don't have a lot of these in Connecticut because they're a Connecticut team. 4-1, I would need more bang for your buck. Xavier's an interesting team, but they've been bet down. I think they opened 15-1. They're down to 10-1. If you made me pick right now, geez, I guess I'd still take it at UConn at 4-1, but this is not a conference where I have a lot of conviction where any number jumps out to me at a great price. I don't know how you feel, Sammy.
I don't love the favorite, and I don't really love any of these dogs down the board, like not Xavier or Villanova either. So I guess I land on the trifecta of Creighton, UConn, and Marquette, and I'm just not a big Shaka Smart guy. So as you can tell, I'm doing process of elimination. I think Ball has really come on for UConn as a spacer and a shooter for UConn. I mean, he's been very, very good down the stretch for UConn. And look, Hurley needed to figure a lot out this season. You win a tournament, you win the second tournament, and then a lot of your big pieces leave. And it's not always easy in that third year when you've been beating the snot out of everybody. And now everybody wants, to take a crack at you. So that's a team that knows how to win in the postseason. They've got the pedigree. I think they have the guard play. I don't know that they can protect the rim enough to win a tournament in the Big East or win the big tournament. Obviously, they're going to be an 8 or a 9 seed, but UConn could win the Big East. I mean, we've seen them be worse and win this tournament, right? In the last 15 years, they've been priced much higher than they are right now on that 4-1 line. And they get on these runs, whether it be with Shabazz Napier or Kemba Walker. UConn's just built to win in March, and I wouldn't count them out until they're not breathing.
Can St. John's win the championship? I feel like they're going to be a sentimental pick for a lot of people. I just can't see it with the shooting. Will, is any chance St. John's can make it deep into March Madness? Not this tournament, but like deep into March Madness. How much will matchups matter for them as we look at the bracket starting next week?
Of course. I mean, Will, they guard the hell out of you. That's a team that nobody wants to face. And, we do a lot of the advanced analytics work. And I know Ken Pom has St. John's 15th, but there are some metrics that have them as a top 5-6 team in the country. Now, are they going to be able to put the ball in the basket? We shall see. But defensively, there are not many teams that line up and hit you in the mouth and body you up. I know some teams might have better efficiency, but there's not two teams in the country that play more physical and that just get out and bother you and throw you off your game than St. John's does. And people like offense, but this team is all defense. And the best part about St. John's, they have that second day coach. The guys on Saturday and Sunday, right? Patino is one of the best in the ballroom of the hotel, laying the tape on the carpet. Like St. John's in a turnaround, I trust more than most teams because of the coaching staff.
And if they end up in the East, you're talking about a path that is, I think, Providence, then New Jersey, where they're going to have a little mini home court advantage all the way through. Now, that would mean probably Duke in the East. That would be a hell of a regional final Elite Eight game. If you're talking Duke, St. John's, that would be a lot of fun just from a lot of different perspectives. But I just think winning 6 is a stretch. Winning 4, getting to a Final Four again, that list is longer. The teams that can do that, the shooting, especially the free throw. I could live with a bad 3-point shooting team, a bad free throw shooting team in these games that are all close, especially after the first round. I just feel like they're kind of ripe for an upset. So I love Patino. I love the story. I love the fact that St. John's is relevant. I just don't know. Winning 6 is a stretch. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, this is a team that hasn't been to a Sweet 16 in I think 20-something years. If they make a Sweet 16 in Elite Eight and bow out, it's not like a disappointing year. This has been a hell of a year, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, you're totally right. They shoot less than 30% from 3 and less than 70% at the line. That's usually not the recipe to win 4 games or 6 games. But I will say I would much rather knock them out on Thursday, Friday than Saturday, Sunday. So maybe we see an Arizona Princeton all over again. I mean, look, in this tournament, who knows? We've seen 1 seeds go down. We've seen Michigan State is a 2, Arizona is a 2. Johnny's probably a 3, right, guys? I think they're going to be like a 3 seed in the tournament. So there's going to be a 14 team that maybe can shoot 45% from 3 and 80% at the line. And that's the worst matchup for St. John's.
I think for St. John's, it's going to matter like how Texas Tech in the Big 12 finishes in the tournament. It looks like them and they're sort of the next team up to be a 2 seed before we get to Texas Tech. So we'll see how that goes for St. John's. All right, guys, I'm open the floor. We have like 7 other conference tournaments this week. Anyone have any wagers? We don't have to go through the AAC or the Conference USA or the Mountain West, but Will, I'll start with you. Do you have anything in pocket or any ideas or thoughts for these other conference tournaments? These are obviously, you can wager on them. They're available. But anything you have in mind here?
Let me see. The Big West is interesting because UC San Diego, I think, is going to be a lightning rod team if they ever didn't win their conference tournament. Will they or won't they get in? I think it'd be criminal if they don't get in. This is a team that hasn't been good in the regular season. They've been dominant. I understand they haven't played the best competition, but I hope this team gets in, and I think they are dangerous as hell if they do. This is one where I'd actually lay the chalk with the -160. They only have to win 2 games. They get a bye right to the semis. I like that one. UAB at +750, Sammy. Memphis is the short shot, but Memphis is one of these teams. They turn it over a lot. They can kind of lose to anybody. UAB just lost to them, and they lost both games to Memphis, but those games are always close, always high scoring. Maybe Memphis gets picked off beforehand. Trying to think if there's anything else in terms of a long shot here. I'll turn it over to you. Anything you like? Oh, UNLV at 20-1 to win the Mountain West. They're playing that tournament in Vegas. That's a tournament that's a conference where home court is very prevalent. That's you got 3 or 4 teams kind of bunched there. There's no great team this year. San Diego State is down. I know Colorado State's been hot. But I'll turn it over to you, Sammy. Any of those you like or anything differently?
I'm in the Atlantic 10, and I'm going to sort of zig off of VCU. They are the odds-on favorite to win this conference. I'm being told this is a 1-bid league, though. So if VCU wins the conference tournament at -115, -120, as you see on the screen, that's it. That said, they're in no matter what. Like, they're going to get in if a Dayton or a George Mason can sneak up, and that's the 2-3 matchup right now, George Mason and Dayton. I know that I just said no full unit, but I think what you can do here is split a unit on Dayton and George Mason and try and get one of them home. I really like VCU in a lot of ways, but I don't think they're invincible, and I think both Dayton and Mason present different challenges. Mason very good defensively. Dayton can do a little bit of everything. I mean, nobody wants to face Mason and that trappy, pressy defense led by Tony Skinn, ironically enough, point guard on the Final Four team from many, many moons ago. But I think splitting it on Dayton and Mason gets you into the championship, and then you see what happens against VCU.
Jeremy, what's the ticket we have on George Mason to make the Final Four?
We have him at 500-1 to make the Final Four. I don't think it's going to happen, and they have to win this tournament to get in.
I'm in. I got it too. I hope I hope it happens. I like the long shot sometimes. It's fun to root for something in this tournament. I got nothing to root for in this tournament. Now I got George Mason to root for.
Remember, we got him 500-1, and then an hour later they chopped it to 250-1. Like somebody was we're taking water on George Mason. Bill, get over. That was like a Tuesday morning too at 10 o'clock.
How about this? I tried to bet a college basketball game yesterday, a money line. -135, $400 or something. You've exceeded your limit. This is at a kiosk. Max win is 200 at a kiosk at a sports book. Like this is what we've come to. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's bad.
Sammy had that this weekend. You were at the sports book and you couldn't get down wagers.
Yeah, we tried to bet 300 at a kiosk and they said no.
On a long shot or just what was?
No,
what
it was a -110 bet. Well, it might have been. Sorry, it might have been -115, -115 at that place.
Of course.
Not.
By the way, my bet lost. By the way, so they cost themselves money. Just ridiculous.
Oh well, that's what you get for being a coward bookmaker.
Every time I get limited, I lose that wager without fail.
Yeah,
it's so silly to me. Like I lose every time I get limited. So good to know that I keep a little bit of money in my pocket. All right, guys. Before we get to just best bets and sort of done with the show here. I know baseball's starting soon. We all watch baseball. We all pay attention. We all share wagers in the group chat. Will, anyone you want to share right now, any MLB futures? We'll obviously have a preview episode for that, but I know you're firing your way now on some futures. Poor Garrett Cole here for your Yankees out for the season.
I think the betting angle from that, and it's not, I'm surprised he's not more widely available, but I did find 150-1 on Will Warren, the Yankees pitcher, to be rookie of the year. He's very likely going to have a rotation spot. And with this stuff, you're basically, Sammy, obviously the talent matters. You're just looking for playing time. Why was Jackson Merrill in the mix last year? He played from the start of the season. That's half the battle, maybe 75% of the battle. Will you play every day? Will you get the opportunity to put up the numbers? Luis Hill didn't blow people away with his stats. It's not like he was unbelievable. He was good. But the rookie of the year is about compiling the numbers and just being in the rotation. It's still a good Yankees team. It's not a great team. It's certainly not an elite team. Who knows if you're even going to see Giancarlo Stanton. But if Will Warren can make 28 starts this year and win, 12 or 13 games, that 150-1 is a hell of a bet. So that's one I'll throw my hat in the ring on, Sammy.
Well, my number is not this big, so Will just emasculated me on Bear bets, which is fine. Bear's not here. Bear's not going to watch. Doesn't matter. I have Julio Rodriguez win the AL MVP. I think it's going to be so much easier to pitch around Judge this year. You know, obviously Soto's gone. He's in Queens. Stanton's already hurt. Is it both elbows are hurt?
Both elbows somehow.
Okay, that's not a good start. So I think it's going to be easier to just put Judge on base, and he's not going to be up there with the ability to be protected in that lineup. And obviously, I'm anti-Yankee to begin with because of all the injuries and departures. But I like Julio. You know, he was the Rookie of the Year at age 21. He finished 4th in the MVP voting at age 22. And last year he got off to a bad start and just he didn't play well, but he still has the ability to be like a 40-40 guy, I think, down the road. And maybe it's this year. So it's also worth understanding Julio Rodriguez coming in the last season was 8-1 to win the MVP. Now he's 25. Maybe you can find a 28 still like I did in a different place, far offshore. But, you know, 22, 24, 25-1. I like Julio. And I think the question that I wanted to volley back to Will, you know, is there an American League team that we should bet to win the pennant? Because I'm sorry, I'm not betting the Yankees as is. And I'm certainly not betting them at 7-2. I saw one book has them plus 330.
Insane.
I'm not there, but I also I don't want to bet the Orioles. They lost a couple arms in the rotation. The Astros lose Bregman. They're shuffling things around. I mean, is this the year where we go down and bet the Tigers or the Mariners or the Guardians or like what do we do in the American League pennant market? I think it's completely mispriced.
I completely agree about the price on the Yankees, and Judge under 49.5 homers, I think is a good bet just because if he gets hurt, you're going to win that bet. And he's been hurt a lot in the past. Some of it's fluky stuff, but he's 33, 34 now. He's getting up there. He's older than people think because he came up later, and people just aren't going to pitch to him. What about Texas? They get maybe some better health luck. I know Seager's always banged up. DeGrom's always banged up, but those guys basically gave them nothing last year. You're going to add Corey Seager and DeGrom to a team that was, you know, a World Series champion 2 years ago. Well, they had Seager 2 years ago, but you get the idea. You add Wyatt Langford, who is going to be a monster player for that team. He's going to be playing regularly every day now. To add in with Garcia, they've got, you know, a good manager in Bochy. The rest of the American League is not great. I could see Texas with some better health luck, you know, being in a mix where they're in an ALCS, something like that. I think Texas is really, really good.
I could get on board with that. Geoff, I've never been this excited to bet a team for a pennant that wasn't on line 1, 2, or 3. I mean, I don't want the Yankees, Astros, or Orioles, and the Rangers, as Will just pointed out, are on line 4.
I'm pro Bruce Bochy as much as possible. I watched him coach my Giants for many years without the most talented team and win the pennant and win the World Series. And he finds a way in every season to get the best out of his players when they're not the best. And I think that's always a good wager. On the opposite side, guys, worst record. Angels are plus 3,000 right now. Third, any biters on Angels' worst record? Are we just running back the White Sox here?
No, I'm not running back the White Sox. In fact, I think the Rockies are the White Sox of last year. The Rockies in that barn, they have 3 guys that shouldn't be pitching in the major leagues in the rotation. So we're going to have games where that team gives up 8, 9, 10 regularly at Coors Field, especially in the summer when it gets hotter and the ball flies out of there.
Yeah.
I think the Rockies are on a 110 loss team. That said, the Angels are hanging by a thread. And Joe and I actually talked about this last week. We had this exact conversation, and he said his favorite bet is Angels under. And I said, what about worst record? 30-1. And he cut me off and said, yes. So I know a couple people that already like it. And if you like it, I have to bet it. I have to.
Are they going to be that bad? Are they going to be bad enough where they're in like the 60 win range? Because they did add Kikuchi, they added Soler. Now maybe they trade some of these guys at the deadline, but they're at least, and I don't know why they're trying to be more competitive, more relevant. They got nothing out of Trout last year. I feel like they can be bad. I just don't know if their basement is bad enough to be the actual worst. Again, you're talking 30-1. I can't argue with it. I just don't know. I feel like that's. I just don't know if the floor is low enough.
It is one of the worst runs in terms of big contracts, though. I mean, think about it. Go back to 2011. Pujols, Trout. I mean, the Trout deal at the time was good, but
Rendon, CJ
Rendon,
doesn't want to
And
play.
then-
He doesn't want to play every day. It's unbelievable.
And
then
then we'll,
like, I don't care. Whatever.
Otani, no, we're good. We don't want Otani.
Josh Hamilton, CJ Wilson. It's just, and the funny thing is too, everyone gives them a hard time, and rightfully so. Their heart's in the right place. A lot of these teams, the Pirates, these other teams, they don't spend. They've made an effort, and like, who would have argued with the Rendon signing at the time? Some of these guys, okay, Pujols was a little too old, but they've spent the money. They've gone after guys. It's just, it has been some bad luck for them. Everything has just kind of been King Midas in reverse. Everything they touch just falls apart. It's crazy.
7 years, $245 million, Jeff, for Anthony Rendon, and he hasn't played 60 games yet in a single season.
And he can't even admit just publicly that he likes baseball. Like that, like that's the worst part. Like at least just come out and say, like, I love baseball and bummed him hurt. He's like, nah, just family's more important, or things matter to me. Who cares about baseball? Of course, family's important. Like, we know family's important, but you pretend that baseball's important to you. Last comment on the Rockies, Sammy. Last year I did my White Sox fade, right? Run line fade. They were 41 and 121. Is the Rockies the team this year, or I worry about Coors Field because they can obviously hit their way back into games? Is my run line fade this year the Colorado Rockies?
Run line fade, I don't know. Let me just pull up the bullpen last year. They had, not even close, they had the worst bullpen in the major leagues last year. It was 5.41. That was their bullpen ERA. And you can change a bullpen over one off season. But the problem is that the bullpen, if it's burned out by May or June,
yeah,
you're cooked. And here's their rotation. Marquez is the one. Ugh. Then it's Feltner, Freeland, Senzatella, and Bradley Blaylock. 2 of those guys are major league starters on a good team. Maybe 2. Those guys aren't going 6-7 innings. So that bullpen that was the worst in baseball last year is going to be taxed early this year. 110 losses for the Rockies this year.
I'm in for the fade. Maybe team total over on their opponents every game. What are we going to set that at? 6.5?
I love that you're just trying to find different wagers off the main wager of worst record. I mean, they are going to be, and in that division, think about that. Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Padres. Maybe the Giants have more of a pulse this year. I mean, you're going to get to August, and other teams are going to be laying $3 all the time against the Rockies.
I will say something nice about the Rockies. I don't want to annoy our Rocky fans. I think, was it Condon, the kid from Georgia who they drafted? If he comes up in the middle of the year, he hit some bombs in college. If you put him in Coors Field, I don't know what his number is, rookie of the year. That guy could put up some absolutely impressive numbers because he can hit. And in that ballpark, I think he is going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, Charlie Condon. Looks like he is, I don't know where he's at right now, where he's projected to start. He's going to be a player for sure. 3rd overall pick in 24. Good player. Not enough to save that sorry team.
No.
Sorry, Colorado.
Teach him how to pitch, maybe.
Any last words, guys, before we get out of here? Any last wagers you got? Any golf this weekend? Any NASCAR, IndyCar? Anything we got here?
No, I think we covered it.
Any spring training, Will? Any women's?
Well, I haven't got any spring training wagers in like a week.
No, it's been busy with the conference tournaments. Everything just kind of gets. If you don't get them right away, they move 20, 30 cents. Then it's just like, what's the point of even passing it along? So I'll get back on that. But we've had plenty of daytime action with these college hoops. Speaking of which, we were 17-13, 12 minutes into Cincy Oak State. So another first half under looking good here. This has been a rock fight to start.
And I will say, I do, not to bang the Duke drum one more time, but let me do it. To reach the Final Four, you can find them at multiple places at -150. They're going to the Final Four. And there are people that we know that'll lay 160, 170 on baseball money lines. But, I can't lay Duke at -150. The hell you can't. They are going to the Final Four.
All right. Well, and with that, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week with a full preview of the entire bracket as is out on Sunday night. Take care. Thanks, guys, for coming on. We'll talk to you next week. All right, guys, welcome back. Thank you to Sammy and Will. Hopefully you got some conference tournament knowledge there. It is hard to bet on these a little bit, right? I mean, there are 4 games in 4 days, 5 games in 5 days. Some teams get 2 buys, some get 1 buy. Talked about some of the conferences, win and get in. Some teams are already locked in. So it's very tricky. but hopefully we gave you some wagers there. Again, a lot of these favorites, hard to bet on, so maybe take a little piece on the dogs. Small piece, right? As Sammy talked about, unit management, very important for your wagers in these futures. You can play off of them later. But let me give you a best bet before we get out of here. Hopefully you're listening to this in time. I'm taking Oregon against Indiana on Thursday. First game on Thursday in the Big Ten tournament. Oregon's favored by 2.5. They've won 7 in a row, including beating Indiana a few weeks ago. But here's why I'm taking Oregon. I think it's a misprice. If you look at to win the Big Ten tournament, Oregon is 28-1, right? Plus 2,800. Indiana is 60-1. With that disparity, this number should be much bigger for Oregon. In reverse, there was a game of the women's college basketball side in the same way. So I just think this number is too low for Oregon when you have the futures priced the way they are. So give me Oregon here minus 2.5. They've won 7 in a row. They play really well in March under Dana Altman. It's an early game. Unconcerned about that. I think just better than Indiana. Give me Oregon here minus 2.5. And that'll be it. That's our show for this week. We'll be back next Tuesday to preview the entire scene for March Madness. We'll get you set up for the early games. We set up for round 1, and we'll take a peek maybe at some round 2 matchups that are caught our attention. We'll give you region winners, all that fun. Bear will be back next week. Looking forward to having him back in the saddle here. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Enjoy the week of conference college basketball tournaments. We're back next week. Take care, everybody.